I again began meal prepping in these glasses. Now in this video I want to discuss the current strategy of nutrition, as I have three different parts of it. The first would describe the meal shakes, which is kind of this section. Then I have on-demand meals, which is mostly the fridge, and a couple of other things such as tuna. On demand means that I don't have to cook them. And then I also have these pre-made meals, which I mostly store in my freezer, as well as other ingredients for meals. For context, I do train every single day. So I do 3 times a week resistance training. An additional 4th day, I do kind of a circuit. Then I do run once a week. I also do an interval training once a week, and I also do an additional cardio workout once a week. Now, therefore, I try to eat usually high in protein. In winter, I go higher in the fats, it seems, because I can do cold exposure in winter. Now, the first part of the strategy is the meal shakes. Mostly, these consist out of the main nutrient or the main content, that is protein powders. I had tried different meal shakes before. This is still a bag of Huel, but I found that the carbs are too high for me, and so the main ingredient that I need seems to be the protein. So I have whey protein, plant protein, as well as beef protein, and I didn't get additional powders. There would be a couple of casein, for example, but it's more expensive compared to whey protein, so I stuck at this point in time to these 3. All of these 3 are unflavored, which seems to be how I need to strategize in terms of nutrition. And then I also have the supplementation. I currently am taking a multivitamin and mineral. These are all the things I take on a daily basis. I also take turmeric, as well as omega-3 fatty acids, 2 grams of EPA, as recommended by Andrew Huberman. So I also have different other meal powders, kind of, in order to make the meal shakes. My meal shaker at home is in here. So I usually have the shaker. It's always in the fridge, and then I make shakes on demand, kind of whenever I just want to drink something really quick, which is then a meal. In addition to the protein, I also have multiple kind of powders which are smaller. Now this is flaxseed. Then I have basically I have different levers. I think of them as levers. I also have egg powder, which seems to be about the same price as normal eggs, just in powdered form. Also flaxseed and a couple of other ingredients as well. And I also try to, at least as an experiment, I try to partially outsource kind of the makeup of my morning shake by relying on the recommendations I got based on blood work from Inside Tracker. Now this is mostly the meal shake department. In terms of on demand, I usually think of tuna as on demand because, so what is on demand? It's whenever I want to eat real food. So meal shakes are the one thing, and then I would have real food, but the real food ideally would not take time to cook. So this could be a tuna, for example. This could also be eating protein powder, but I mostly try to stay away, because it seems to be the case that if I frame it as drinking with the meal shake, then it is then there is less expectation of enjoyment involved. Now this is my fridge. It mostly consists out of dairy, which you find here. Then I have in summer more vegetables. It seems to be the case that my body wants more vegetables in summer compared to winter. Then I also have cottage cheese in a low-fat and a high-fat variant. Currently I'm eating mostly the low-fat variant, and curd has been kind of a staple in my diet, but I recently have been trying to reduce it. So this is all of the curd out of my freezer. Also, you cannot really freeze curd, it seems. Afterwards it turns into fluid, as well as kind of a not very well tasting powder. Then on the top here, on the bottom rather, I usually have 2 cucumbers and 7 tomatoes, which usually last for half a week, and then I restock them. These 8 or 9 glasses, or 10 glasses rather, are basically glasses I have from cooking meals. The main dish I make is basically meat with vegetables. So I have 2 different kinds of vegetables. I also every now and then get something else, just to get something else to keep the variety high also. So I have the soup vegetables as well as these vegetables, and they are kind of the vegetable part, also the kind of low carb part, even though the carrots are quite high in carbs, at least for vegetables. So this is then what is left after I took basically the meat out. This has been chicken breast. So I did think I made 2.4 kilograms of chicken breast in here, and then these were kind of 4 glasses. In addition, I ate a little bit of it, so it could have been 5 glasses. So now we go to the pre-made meals. In the last couple of weeks and months, I would try to mostly eat or drink milkshakes and then have kind of on-demand meals. Now, vegetables are also kind of on demand, but you also have to prepare them, so it's not really cooking, but nonetheless, it's a lot of preparation work to wash the vegetables and so on. For this reason, also I'm relying partially on these frozen vegetable mixes to kind of have the base covered, and I, in summer, eat more normal vegetables, fresh vegetables usually. So then I go to the freezer part, and now I also have to take these basically in. So I only have the small freezer. Of course, I also have the freezer department, which I already showed you. But in this freezer now, I made a change. This was that, so previously I made the change going from glasses to these boxes. The main reason was that I tried to, so basically I was not working from home at this time, and I tried to get my nutrition into a form which I could put into the rucksack and backpack. Now, I previously had the glasses. Why the glasses? The glasses have a very convenient form factor. They also are basically free because I every now and then buy sauerkraut, and these are just the sauerkraut glasses from the grocery store. So I get new lids and new glasses, and I also can throw them away at any point in time if I have too many of them. Now, the problem with these glasses, taking them with you, is that you cannot put them really upside down, and if you have a rucksack and you put the rucksack down or any bag, then they begin to leak. Now, this led to a couple of times me then having to wash the rucksack because the tuna kind of began to smell in the rucksack, which was kind of unfortunate. So then I realized that I had to switch to these again. I did buy them previously, now multiple years ago, and I already used them when studying and to pre-prep my meals there. So I had still 13, 14 of these boxes. But so the previous configuration was 2 of these departments as filled with these boxes, and then I would have 1. So basically I had 1 which was partially filled with these glasses, and the rest on 1 only was meat. Because I wanted to have more meat in my freezer, also to kind of be able to react to whenever they run a discount at the grocery store. And because I also found myself having to kind of eat more meat in order to keep my body composition, otherwise it seems to go sideways, I wanted to make a change with at least having 1/2 department more meat, maybe even 2. So what I did is I got rid of a couple of these boxes. They are now basically empty and outside of the freezer. So I still have now this shelf, which contains 9 of these boxes, so basically 9 meals. I usually have 2 of them in a given day. In addition, I have my morning drink. In addition, I have maybe something for dinner. So these are still here. I also have them in the zipper bag with usually a spoon in the zipper bag. I don't know where the spoon is. Here. And this is just for eating, but it's also not very convenient to eat with a teaspoon. And then, but it's the only one that fits in there, and that also then comes kind of with this pack. And so also these boxes seem to sometimes, at least on the outside, of course there is a little bit of water on the outside also coming from the freezer, so they also smell a bit. For this reason I put them usually in here. Also, if you have fish or I have fish in the freezer, this seems to leak eventually. And so here, for example, I still have 1 pack of fish, and well, it then again began to smell. Now, if it's totally closed, then it's not a big deal, but as soon as you have it open, then it begins to smell. Now, the next part here is now these meals, and previously I was able to, within half of a department, basically have 4 of these boxes, and now I can have 8. And the content is a little bit smaller here, so this is a little bit less volume compared to the boxes, but it's about the same, I would say, a little bit less, which means that I now can have 8 meals here instead of 4 with the boxes. So what I now have here is kind of another advantage as well. So I can just see through them, and this is not so much the case with the boxes, especially if there is a little bit of ice on the outside. So you cannot really see what is in there now. And this was also a change. So I had these in this, I do have them in this drawer now, which means I can kind of preview them like here. But if they are standing up like this, then I cannot really preview, and I have to sample through them with basically taking them out. especially since I also had a drawer back up here, which I took out. Now, I can sample through these boxes here, which is quite convenient. This was also the strategy I used to use with these boxes previously, but I did have a different freezer. I actually had access to a bigger freezer as I lived in a student dorm where we had a bigger freezer. Now I can basically take them out. Of course, now I put all of these glasses, which I currently made, into the front, but I can also take this one, and then I can just, whenever I have new ones, put them in here. And this seems to be quite a useful concept, because then I can just, of course I cannot take all of it out, and there also is kind of constraint that these are quite heavy, so you don't want to necessarily put the drawer or pull the drawer out too much, but you can still get here, and then in theory at least, even with one hand, no, it doesn't work with one hand, but it's at least a little bit better compared to before, so I can just now see them and sample through them. That was kind of the idea. So because I don't have a microwave, what I have to do is I have to take them out the night before usually, and then put them in the fridge, or put them basically at air temperature, and then they would kind of unfreeze. Now the more water there is in there, the more time it probably takes. So if I have something like this, then it probably does not take that long, and I can maybe chew on the chicken already if it's still frozen. But if I have something like this, then it might take a little bit longer. Now on the left side here I have cottage cheese in the high-fat variant. So this has 4.5 grams of fat, and the other version has less fat, so this is only at max 0.5 grams of fat. So this is basically the summer version, this is the winter version. Then from the grocery store I usually buy meat that is already cut, which in this case is goulash, so this is beef and pork, and then I have only beef up here, apart from this one here. And the beef also comes in a pack that is kind of slimmer or less deep, which means that I can have more in it, which also is true for the usual meat I get, which is then turkey or chicken, which would be on the right, but currently these were on discount. And I currently also have a problem. Maybe I need to find something where I could have something that holds up. I already searched for kind of a stick like this, but I could not find one. And that's basically it. On top I have this one chicken, not chicken, but fish. But since I already have tuna, and the tuna is already kind of cooked and I can eat it out of the can, this then makes up the whole fridge. It also looks nice, I think, and it also is somewhat symmetrical. And I do have now the different components. I can take 2 meals with me. For example, if I really want to eat with somebody, let's say somewhere, then I can potentially also normally eat with meals, and I don't have to show up with my meal shakes, which I have in my rucksack anyway. So I have 2 shakers of the meal shakers you saw already in my rucksack. I have one on the left, and this is just a water shaker. So in here I always have water. On the bottom of the shaker there is an electrolyte tablet usually, or multiple ones, which then electrolyte my water. On the right I have kind of the same setup, but then I use this shaker on the right for meals. So I just put in meal powder, and the meal powder in this case is just protein powder, which is more convenient, and I also am reducing basically the complexity of making maize. If I would make my own meal powder from the protein powder as well as different, then I would have certain recipes, and then they would change over time, and then I would have to also change what is in here. So I found that at least for the current need I have 2 additional shakers down here, which are filled with plant powder and also whey protein. I do not have one for the beef. Maybe that's for the future, but also the rucksack does only have a certain amount of space.